Hi everybody, my name is Jason Hanauska, and this week I'm doing my scene analysis on David Fincher's Fight Club. Much of this movie's curb appeal comes from an absolutely twisted storyline, but a significant portion of that appeal comes from subtle and cleverly added cinematic effects. Such effects explored in this analysis are color schemes, shallow focus, spotlighting, superimposing images, camera shake, and the infamous cigarette burns. Although seemingly minute, their effects span from comical to deeply personal, emphasizing the polarizing effects of insomnia on a man's perception of the outside world. An often overlooked aspect of cinematography, post-production color editing can emphasize a number of things while doing so in a rather covert fashion. As seen in this collection of stills, the range of color is very narrow. Soft blues, grays, and beiges fill most of the frames, and nothing in particular seems to stand out to the viewer. This color scheme was chosen at key points throughout the movie to illustrate the narrator's struggle with insomnia, mainly that his life is entirely devoid of meaning. My take on why the producers chose these scenes to introduce the color scheme was because these are the scenes in which, although the narrator is surrounded by all these people, he's not with any of his quote-unquote friends, that being Tyler, Marla, and some people even put Bob on this list as well. Playing off the same use of color, or lack thereof, in the narrator's life, this set of stills shows the other end of the spectrum. Although there is a broader range of color in these scenes, there's an obvious darkness to them that seems to blur much of the surroundings. It's important to note here that these dark scenes actually make up the bulk of the movie. After the narrator meets Tyler, Marla, and Bob, those dully colored scenes don't make much of an appearance at all for the rest of the movie. This is reminiscent of the fact that the narrator completely engulfs himself in the life that his friends impose on him, or as we learn by the end of the film, the life that he imposes on himself. For the next two slides, I took images previously used and put them into a program that analyzes the colors and shows you their relative distributions. I thought this would be a cool way to see exactly how each image differs at the most fundamental level. I suggest pausing the video for a little bit to make sense of all the numbers, but basically in the left-hand column for each image you have the raw colors, and then the right-hand column under percentage you have obviously that color's percentage, so 0.365 will mean 36.5%. And why they didn't actually make those real percentages is beyond me. But as you can see, these two images are almost entirely composed of grays and browns. There's a little blue in the left image, but as you can see, that occupies all of about 0.06%. Along with the analysis given earlier, these distributions confirm the dull and bland color schemes that the producers chose to represent the narrator's empty experience. Moving on to the darker images, it's immediately clear that these images explore a broader range of color. That being said, take a close look at the color distributions and which one is most prominent. From left to right, the black occupies 85 and 73% of each image, which is pretty huge relative to the other images, which were 11 and 2% black. It's pretty clear they were trying to go down a different road with this style. So each of these two images here displays a couple of techniques that I thought worked really well together, mainly shallow focus and background spotlighting. There are a few key differences between the two images, but for the most part they are framed in a similar fashion. The top image lacks foreground spotlighting, while the bottom image seems to use much smaller spotlights that only illuminate the individuals in the background. As for why they chose to illuminate the two scenes differently, my take on it is that Tyler represents the darker, more destructive, and uber-masculine side of the narrator, while Bob is the absolute antithesis of Tyler. So this set of stills shows what I thought to be one of the more clever editing techniques they used, and that is superimposing or flashing an image of Tyler for a fraction of a second. In the movie, it's not nearly as easy to tell that it's Tyler being flashed, but after watching a time or two, you kind of catch on. For first-time viewers, though, this really throws you off because you knew you saw something, but pinning it down is nearly impossible. This trick does a nice job at letting the viewer into the narrator's state of mind. Up until this point, we're really not sure how crazy he actually is, but it's little hints like this that are soon to be satisfied with the precipitation of Project Mayhem and the absolute destruction it brings about. And here's another example of Tyler being flashed, which I think is the third or fourth time that they do it in the intro before they actually introduce Tyler. It's a little difficult to tell from this one still, but the post-production crew edited in this sort of artificial camera shake that actually looks like the roll of film is coming unraveled in front of the projector, and that can be noted by the exposed perforations on the side of the image. As Tyler is preaching his normal sermon, the image all but falls off the reel, and to the dismay of any epileptic viewers, we are now that much closer to understanding just how crazy these men actually are. And for my last example, I wanted to briefly go over the cigarette burns. This was way back when the narrator was giving us a little background story on how Tyler likes to spend his free time. This example is him splicing individual pornographic images into family films. This particular effect didn't play much into the storyline, but I wanted to include it because I felt like it added an interesting element to the already unique style of storytelling. And that's all I got for my scene analysis, and I hope you all enjoyed.